Blackballed. Blackballed. Blackballed.
What is up, everybody? My name is James D. Fiore, and this is Blackballed. Sometimes you want to do a podcast where not only does your guest sound a lot better than you, but you don't have to do all that much preparation because you feel like you know the person that you're interviewing, even though you've never met in the flesh. I, like many of you, got to know this person as the blue jacket guy who stood up to the convoy protesters that were literally right outside his home for weeks on end, driving him fucking mad. At least that's the story I think is true. But he's also the co-host of the True Eager Beaver Podcast, and his name is Paul Atkinson. Paul, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, brother, I'm doing great. How about yourself?
Oh, I'm doing okay as well. You have like the greatest voice. You're like the Wolfman from the hilarious House of Frankenstein. Do you remember that show?
Hey, it's the Wolfman. Let's go back in time, my brothers.
That's right. Oh my God. Dude, I have so many content ideas for you now. Amazing.
Let's go crazy.
Yeah. How are things?
Things are spectacularly good for me right now. Yeah, like busy, super busy with the my day gig, and we're doing 3 days a week. We're doing a morning show now, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 7 till 7:30, quarter to 8 ish, until I have to rush to the office. And things are great.
I noticed that, and what I actually really noticed was the amount of people that were watching live. I noticed that, and I was just like, I think you've tapped into something. Not only are you guys good content, but
thank you.
That morning time hour, that 7 to 8 hour, like I was doing my podcast at 1 o'clock, and it was doing okay. When I moved it to 7 p.m., oh my God, it's like you let everything out. So it's interesting because everyone is active either between 6:30 and 8:30 or after 5 o'clock. If you do your show before that, you still might have a great show, but like you're not taking advantage of the audience that you could have. But yeah, you guys are killing it. I'm
thanks, man.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, people really like to be a part of the interactive aspect of it. So for me, I thought, hey, you know what? Let's do an early morning. And actually, it was Douglas's idea initially. He wanted to do a daily thing. And I'm like, well, daily might be difficult, but let's see what we can do. So a couple weeks ago, I said, let's try this. Let's see how it goes and see what happens. And I think it's because so many of us are up at that hour getting ready to go to work, whatever the case may be, get our life on the road. And there's that little window where we're tired of the broadcast pablum where everything is hunky-dory. I mean, I'm going to drop the F-bomb when I'm mad, and we're going to give you the straight goods. We're always going to be realistic, factual, and if we fuck up the facts, I'm going to apologize and say we got it wrong. So I don't know. I think that gives us a little bit of a difference. Maybe
that's important. I think so. The recognition of a mistake is important. Also, if you get mad, I'm sure during this podcast, I'm sure it'll be my fault. I have a unique gift
for pissing people off.
Even when I'm not trying, right? I think what happens is that, and it's my fault in a way because. Mm-hmm. If you're a person who spent years cultivating a really horrible reputation, right? When you're kind of growing out of that, or when you feel like you've grown out of that, I'll have some evolving to do until the day that I die, because I think that's what we're here for, to try to get better every day. But today, and I'm not going to dwell on it, and I'm not going to say who it is or anything like that, but there was a disagreement that I had with somebody that I actually wouldn't even call a disagreement. It was just I thought it was just a discussion, and it had to do with a sensitive topic and everything like that. And I don't really want to I don't want to put anyone on blast, so I'm not going to. But
Okay.
I thought about it after I was blocked by this person who I consider to be a friend. It happens to be a lot. Friends block me. I don't know. And I reviewed the tweet exchange and everything. For the life of me, I'm just like, I don't know what I did. Right? And I am one of these people now who's like, I feel like I'm living off of the rep that I've cultivated. And even though my contextual intention is solid, or at least not negative, could be benign, right? But it was,
Right.
I still have to watch out. I still have to like figure out a way to filter myself so that the other people don't gravitate to the old James and like, oh, here he goes again and everything. When I'm really just like saying, hey, I disagree with this particular point of view, but hey, like, maybe I should seek your advice because you don't strike me as a guy who pisses a lot of people off.
Well, I try and be as understanding as possible, with the exception of Nazis. Fuck them, punch them in the face. I'm going to say that till the day I die. They do not get a pass. They do not get any tolerance from me, because the paradox of tolerance is if you tolerate the intolerant, then you're going to lose all respect.
We could
society.
We could discuss that. Because I would say to you, okay, can we just do an experiment, knowing going in that we're not going to get mad at each other? Okay.
Yeah, no problem. Let's do it.
I would probably, if it was ever like up for discussion, I'd be like, okay, well, how do you define a Nazi?
Well, that's usually they self-identify as one, I would think, and we're not going to go with the textbook World War II, pre-World War II definition of what one was, National Socialist. That's not what a Nazi is in 2022. 2022, a Nazi is a hateful, angry person who does not tolerate diversity in society. So if you're part of the alphabet mafia, if you're BIPOC, if you don't look like me, basically, they don't want you. That's a Nazi, because I love diversity. Love diversity. It makes Canada a much better country, I personally feel. Now, I know some people have said time and time again that multiculturalism has failed, and I'm like, I disagree. And I say that from the standpoint of somebody who works with a very multicultural, diverse workforce, number one. Number two, they're all 30 years younger than me. And number three, they do the work that guys like me most often are not willing to do. Guys who look like me are not willing to do. And I mean, without immigration...
No offense, but guys that look like us, often they're Nazis.
Well, you're right. Yes. I'm not offended by that, because it's true. It's like, it's true. But I find that the people who come to this country and get the opportunities that they wouldn't have wherever they were from come here and make this a better nation. And without immigration, this country would die. And this is not my opinion. This is from Stats Canada facts. Mm-hmm. There are not enough... Without getting into the complexities, I'm not going to get into the Roe v. Wade stuff, because I fully support a woman's right to make that choice. But quite frankly, there's just not enough people having babies. Without immigration, this country would die. Now, again, somebody's going to take that out of context and say you're a pro. No, I'm pro-choice. 100% all the way. No questions asked, pro-choice. A woman has 100% bodily autonomy to make a choice about whether or not she wants to carry a child to term. And that's where I stop. I don't say anything after that, because, well, I'm 54 years old, so I'm not about to impregnate anybody.
Really?
No, I can.
Yeah.
I can. I'm
not
not
gonna be
going
limited.
to. Yeah, I don't want to be a father at my age. Come on, let's not be ridiculous here, right?
Yeah, I was 40 when we had our second. So, I was, that's not quite 54, but it's still, it felt old. I feel old now.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's the thing. It's like, and you want to do all the things with your children that, you may or may not have had as a child. I don't know what your upbringing was like, but I came from the
whole other show.
Yeah. I did watch an episode with you and Ashley, and I went, oh, okay. So I don't want to go there, because that's about you, and I don't want to delve into your personal.
You can ask me whatever
trauma.
you want. I'm an open book, but please continue with your story. Yeah.
Well, I come from the basic nuclear family. My dad was in the military. He worked. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. I have myself and two younger sisters. 3 kids, the whole nuclear family, if you will. My parents are still married. They still love one another. They don't know how to be apart from one another. I mean,
That's
honest to
why
goodness.
you're so nice.
Well,
really, like,
maybe.
people that have parents, I'm not saying there's nice people with divorced parents, but people who were in households without divorce, and not only without divorce, but like you said, that had parents that loved and respected each other. Those are the people that grow up to be great people. And I think you're probably an example of that. No, really, because you're clearly a nice person, and that's all I'm saying. And you were given the tools at a young age by having their example imprinted on you, so you could grow up and be a person who is inclusive, who believes in diversity, who wants to be nice to people except for Nazis, which is totally understandable. Right. And I like that. I respect that. I used to envy it, and now it's funny when you get into a certain space in life where you're just like, you know what, just like that was the hand I was dealt, and it was a lot of shitty cards, but the game progressed, and I kind of like my hand now.
Well, I mean, you've got the nuclear family, right?
No, 2 kids, and we're separated, but still cohabitating. So we're co-parenting right now. Okay,
but that's the 21st century version of the nuclear family,
minus all the imprinting of respect and love.
Yeah. But you still have respect for one another if you're able to share a dwelling, and you. I'm going to guess, and tell me if I'm wrong, but I'm going to guess that both of you really want your children to not have the same sort of childhood that you had. You want them to have all of the things that you wanted as a child. Correct me if I'm wrong, please, but I think most people tend to gravitate towards, I want them to have what I didn't have. And it's not material things.
You're totally right. Right. She was brought up in a strict home. I was brought up in where's James been for the last 2 weeks? It's his 12th birthday coming up. What's going on? Like that it was more like that. But I'm the strict one. Like
you've already run. You've done the running wild, right?
I've done the running wild. I know what I'm missing. I know that the long-term problems that I had with authority, with discipline, with all that kind of stuff is a direct result of me not having any definable parenting since I was 12.
And that's not the first time I've heard that either. It's not. I've heard that from a lot of guys I grew up with, guys I've known throughout my life, who same sort of thing, and they in turn have turned around to become amazing parents because they wanted to give the children the guidance they never had, and it's like they're strict, and then there's the iron fist strict, and you got to find the balance between the two, right?
Yeah, no, 100%. I'm not iron fist. I'm parents who I think are. It's tough. I've been described as a helicopter parent before, but I'm really not a helicopter parent. Like I don't like, oh, don't fall. And when they fell, I didn't run to get them. I just waited for them to get up. So I'm not like that kind of thing. And sometimes it's actually paid off for me. My son was 1.5, and we were at a climbing park in Toronto when I still lived there. And he climbed up to this thing, and it was, I don't know, 7 feet off, maybe 8 feet off the ground.
It's pretty high for a 1-year-old, right?
Pretty high for a 1.5-year-old. All these moms that I would joke around with every day because I was a stay-at-home dad for a year, they would all be sitting on the benches, and their 1.5-year-olds were running around this climber, and I was always kind of within 4 or 5 feet of my son, and he wasn't looking. And getting nervous that I was there and all that stuff because I would joke with him a little bit or whatever. But he did climb up to that 8.5-foot thing and then fall backwards. But he fell into my arms instead of onto the playground. And I was like, I don't give a fuck what anyone says. I am happy that I am a helicopter parent if it results in me not watching my son fall from 8 feet. Right. So
absolutely. What was it my sister said the other day? She said something that I went, yeah. She says she has 3 sons and 14, 11 and 14, 12, and 9 or 11. Anyway, sorry, I got it wrong. I apologize. Sorry.
It's okay. See, so Canadian. Sorry. Sorry.
Make mistakes, eh? And she said the thing is, you know, when you're raising boys, you spend more time trying to keep them alive than anything else. Because, you know, she says, girls, you're always going to worry about bad things happening to them, which is because, you know, we live in a pretty messed up world. But with boys, you're always worried about them doing something that will kill them or hurt them or harm them. And I mean, and all three of them are hockey players, and the youngest, or the oldest one looks so much like me when I was his age, it's disturbing. Except I'm 6 foot. Yeah, my nephew, my oldest nephew. Yeah. I'm 6 foot tall. He's 6'2", and he's, I think, 15. He's 15, so he's not even hit his full growth spurt yet. And I mean, back when I was that age, I had a giant afro, and so does he.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That is actually funny because I noticed that with my daughter is this spitting image of my sister.
Oh, yeah.
Like, and her daughter as well. Like, I took she sent me a picture of, I'll see if I can find it, but she sent me a picture of her daughter when her daughter was 3, beside a picture of my daughter when my daughter was 3. I showed it to my daughter, and she's like, "Where was I there?" And she pointed to my niece. And so it's interesting, the nephew niece, the way that they can often look almost identical to their uncle or aunt.
Oh yeah, it's spooky. Yeah. There's a picture my sister once years ago, this is 25 years ago, she held up a picture of my mother and father on their wedding day, and she stood beside me and we held it in front of us, and people like, Jesus Christ. It's like I am, not only do I look exactly like my father, but our mannerisms, our vocal tone, the way we move like, it's all the same. And I'd be out with my sister somewhere, and we're having drinks and having dinner, and they're like, "Oh my God, you're so much like Dad. You're so much." And I didn't see it. And then eventually, we're at a family get together, and I looked over at my father and I went, "Oh, I get it now. I see it. We're exactly alike."
Yeah. In
so many, many ways. Now, his older brother, who was quite a bit older than him, when they were both, in their, my dad's 80, he did 81. He just turned 81. And when his older brother was, I think he was 12 or 15 years older, might have been 10, I can't remember exactly, but the family dog used to get them confused. I kid you not. The dog would run up to my uncle and go, "Oh, wait a minute, and then go to my dad and then just sit there and go, "What the hell is?" That's how much they look alike. But
that's a subpar dog, really.
No, this dog was super smart. A super smart miniature poodle, and you could just say, "Go wake up so-and-so," and they would go up to the person's room and go and get them. Like, she was crazy smart, but anybody, like, people would walk into a room and think they were twin brothers, and there was like 10 or 12 years, I can't remember, a lot of years between them.
Yeah, no, and I totally get that too. My favorite relative was my grandfather. My grandfather he was a tailor, Italian man, born and brought up in Old Montreal. Oh, nice. And he used to make suits for the Rizzuto crime family.
Well, it's just par for the course, right?
Right. And so I'd sit, I'd be sitting on his, what do you call it, the counter or whatever, at the cash or whatever, and he'd be like measuring gangsters and stuff, and they'd put like money in my pocket, but they buy him a Cadillac once a year for like 3 years, until my grandmother was like, "You don't know what they want for it." So he asked them to please stop. But no, he had a cousin that looked so much like him that when I was like 5 years old, I sat down on the couch at my Auntie Marie's house in Montreal, and I just snuggled up to my pappy, and I fell asleep. And when I woke up, I was looking up, and from that angle, I'm like, "It's not Pappy." But from every other angle, it was Pappy. And everyone was laughing and stuff, and he didn't want to move because he didn't want to wake me up. But I thought it was my grandfather. So
it's crazy how that works, right? Like the family bloodlines, you don't know. There's so much we know that we don't know about how it all boils down, how it all works. And I mean, look, I don't know much about anything, but I try and observe as much as I can, and I do my best. I sincerely do my best to try and be a good person every day. Some days I fail, and on the days that I fail, that's when I'm like, I unplug myself from everything. I stay home. I try and meditate. I listen to jazz. I do whatever I can to get my headspace back, because I've said this before on a couple of podcasts. the old Marilyn Monroe statement, whether or not she ever said it, I don't know. It's like, if you can't handle me at my worst, you don't deserve me at my best. And I'm like, fuck you, bitch. Sorry if that offends anybody, but really.
See, if I said that, people would be like, he's so sexist. Yeah, he's a fucking misogynist. I hate that guy, James. Oh my God. But you say it and people are like, I know what he meant. I know what he meant, guys. It's
well, what I mean by that is like, why should I give anybody my worst and expect them to accept it? No. I only want to give my best. And the days when I know I'm going to be bad, and we're all going to have this, I'm just going to remove myself from the situation so that I don't do anything harmful to anybody. And, we only get one kick at the can. Look, I've been to 41 funerals in the last 10 years. 41.
Wow.
I'm 54 years old. I'm still a relatively young man-ish. I'm still, I've got at least 11 years in the workforce before they try and put me out to pasture. I mean, look, I'm on the Freedom 95 program, so I'm working till I slide into the grave. But
you know what? I think you're right, and that's why I always said I didn't want to become a sitcom husband, because sitcom husbands, like, what are they? They their wives treat them like shit. Yeah. They're always really stupid and thoughtless, and who wants to be that? And a lot of marriages end up like that because and it's not. I mean, I only know my experience with women, so maybe some men are like this too. I have no idea. But when one person is just decided, you know what, I'm just going to be grumpy for years, and you're just going to have to deal with it and smile politely. Yeah, I can't do that.
It's no way to live. Yeah. It's no way to live, man. Life is so short and so very fragile. Like I said, 41 funerals in 10 years. Family, a lot of friends, co-workers. Like, literally, most have been to cancer, a couple to old age. More than I care to mention about, how do you say it without harming people?
Taking their own life?
Yeah, unalive themselves, I guess, is the new thing that the Gen Z says. And, well, I don't want to say the S word because it can trigger people, and
see, that's probably where we're a little bit different. I wouldn't, because I would never even think that word would trigger people. And then if someone said that it would, I'd be like, well, what do we have to set? How many words are like that? Like, how many words can we say? So we just, there's evidence now that you are nicer than me. And we'll probably have a few of those going out throughout the podcast.
I don't know about that. I try to be a good person. Some days are difficult. Sometimes I will lose my shit on Twitter and say things that I don't regret saying it. I don't regret saying them. I go in with a clear mind, and if somebody has done something terrible or said or done something that I completely disagree with, and we have the back and forth, and eventually I will say,
bring this to DM or something.
No, well, no. It's like they start to go off about, well, you're the DJ, you're the loser, you're the podcast, you're this. I'm like, go ahead and pick on me. You don't even know what I do for a day job. This is something I do because I love it. I love to do this, and I think I'm okay at it, but it's not how I earn my living. And I'm not telling people how I earn my living. That's my business, but it is related to audio-visual stuff, right? Mm-hmm. But occasionally I will tell somebody...
phone sex? Because you have a great voice.
Thank you. But no, it's not phone sex. But occasionally I will tell somebody to fillet me in a very vulgar manner and hope that they choke on it, because, when you're you can say that, right?
I never thought I'd heard you say that. The social media stuff, I haven't been bothered by what a stranger has said to me on social media since before the pandemic. I get bothered when it's people that I know or that I'm friends with or that I'm acquaintances with. Those people, when they treat something that I said as a launch pad to attack, I'm like, that's when I get it. Like, I have to know them to get upset.
Right,
if I don't know someone and they call me a loser or something, I'm like,
means nothing. Nothing.
I don't care.
I only really retaliate on people when they are being harmful to others. And that's when I'll get angry with them. Like, if they're spewing misinformation, if they're saying things that are harmful to other human beings, that's when I engage. If it's like, One of the things that we strive to do on the True Eager Beaver podcast is be factual, honest, truthful, and dispel the mis and disinformation that so many politicians are able to say today and never be held to account for it. And I'm kind of like, we cannot allow this to occur. It is a disservice to Canadian citizens if I, as a cis, het, 6 foot tall, 185 pounds, physically fit white male, let this go. I'm in a unique place of privilege, and it is my responsibility to make sure that this harm is not held upon or spewed upon others. It is my duty as a Canadian to make sure that people get the truth, because misinformation is harmful. And if somebody goes, well, you don't know about that, I'm going, January 6th, there's like congressional hearings over that, and people get, look, the convoy, how much do you want to get into that? Right?
We could get into that, because I think you have a unique perspective because of where you live. And it's funny, you're one of the few people that has given me pause when I say things like, say what you will about the convoy. It just like, okay, let me preamble this for a second. The way that the Canadian media covered the Black Lives Matter protests in the States versus how they covered the convoy protest was one of the most bizarre examples of inconsistent journalistic methods and ethics I have ever seen. Mm-hmm. And I'm not praising I look at the convoy not as a pro or con. I just look at it and I try to examine it and everything like that. So there's a few things. One is that the way the media you could still see the glow from the arson and the looting and everything like that in the background. And they're like, it was largely peaceful, and then those same reporters would be covering the Ottawa protests and be like, this is just fucking vile. And I'm just like, okay, hold on. Let's just take a time out here for a second. I think what's really happening is that you agree, especially after George Floyd, because we all saw that man get murdered by a cop.
Yes.
Right.
And that's what happened.
That's exactly what happened. So I think that how we feel about why people are protesting largely dictates how we feel about the methods in which they choose to protest. Mm-hmm. And that's just how, and I think people need to start being honest about that. And present company excluded, I'm just speaking really about the media right now. I think that we need to just be able to say, you know what? It may look like a double standard, but a black man being murdered by a cop is just the rerun that we don't fucking need. And people are angry, and rightfully so. Doesn't mean you condone the looting, doesn't mean you condone the arson, doesn't mean you condone any of the violence, but that's really your starting point. And then when you move to the convoy, the same media and a lot of people are like, these are privileged white people. They're going to the city. They're literally taking it over. They're fucking sitting in hot tubs because they have the privilege that allows them to sit in a hot tub at a protest. They
all
are
true.
They're honking their horns or whatever. These fucking vile, disgusting, racist, blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden, I'm just sitting there like, if they were behaving the same way those Black Lives Matter protesters were behaving, can you even imagine what the coverage would have been like? It would have been like, these are Nazis setting fire to our nation's capital. What the fuck? And so I don't know how to climb inside that nuance and sort of spread it around so that people understand that just because I don't agree with the convoy protester doesn't mean I will ever call it a violent protest. Mm-hmm. It was psychologically harmful, as you have stated many times, for a lot of people. I understand that. I can't identify with it because I wasn't there, but you said it, and I know you're a nice person. I know you're honest, so I believe you. But there are, when that arson story happened for a couple of days, and it turned out they were self-avowed communists. That's just what they said. I didn't see the mea culpa from the media in the way that Paul Atkinson just told me that he issues apologies on his show when he gets it wrong, which I think is the right call.
It is the right call, I think.
And it fucking fuels those people.
Yes, it does.
When the media doesn't do any mea culpa.
Agreed, completely. I mean, well, you've had her on the show a few times. She's been on Dean's show, The Real Andy Lee, who has gone off about, well, that wasn't what I'm like. Okay, but she can't seem to keep her story or her facts straight. But that's another story altogether. It's got nothing to do with what you and I are discussing right now. Yes, there was no mea culpa from the media on that. Were those people part of the convoy? No, they were not. Where was the media that said, well, they weren't actually part of the convoy. They were just people who glommed onto it and agreed. They should have come clean and said, we fucked up. It happens. They didn't. Now, let's backtrack a little bit. A lot of the BLM protests and riots, if you do some investigating, you'll discover that a lot of that, the fires that were set, a lot of the cities that were burned and blah, 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 that had nothing to do with the BLM people that were actually protesting the murder of George Floyd. And much of it has been proven since then that it was done by things like organizations like Patriot Front and so on and so forth. I can't name them all off because I don't have the documentation in front of me. But there's video footage. There is video footage of
that. Sounds a lot like, and I'm not saying it is, but it's to some people that would sound a lot like the right-wing protesters in January 6th that says Antifa was really the ones who were starting to, like, it has
no
that,
argument.
Feel
it does. No argument. Agreed. I remember reading about it and I went, okay. I remember when it was happening. I was watching it and I was thinking, this is not good. Look, protest the hell out of the murder of George Floyd. We watched the man get murdered live. We saw it in real time. And that was horrible and tragic and terrible. And it should never happen because that is not policing. That was murder. And the guy who murdered him is now in prison, as well as he should be. But protest it. Just don't burn cities down because that doesn't advance your cause. Now, the thing is, Antifa is not an actual movement. It's an ideology. BLM is a movement. And the people who work within BLM are kind of like trying to distance themselves from that because they're like, no, this was not us. We didn't do this. Mm-hmm. And I have read a fair bit about it, about how it was not them. Some of it was a lot of, I think, what was it, in Minneapolis? Somebody set fire to a Target store. It turned out it was an off-duty police officer.
Wow. Was he? But, yeah. But the race of that officer would have to come into.
He was white.
Okay. Listen, I know that a lot of bad shit happens. I know that there are a lot of provocateurs that like to embed themselves into people that they're ideological opposites, and that happens all the time.
Oh yeah.
I think I think that we are in danger in our society of dismissing people who shouldn't be dismissed. Mm-hmm. Because we have an idea of what their beliefs might be. And that doesn't include racism. That doesn't include misogyny and that kind of stuff. I am not giving them a pass.
Nope.
But for example, when in 2020, when the Black Lives Matter protests were happening in the States, I think I tweeted something like, I support I obviously support, I'm paraphrasing, but it was something like, I obviously support the concept that Black Lives Matter. I understand why you shouldn't say white lives matter. These are all very obvious concepts. Right. Black lives right now are in danger. We need to find a way to protect them, all that kind of stuff. But the organization, not so much. I'm not going to endorse an organization like that because first of all, they're a political organization. And what happens is, and moderate right wingers hate this. And I'm talking about the ones that are just sensible conservatives. I'm not talking about racists. I'm not talking about misogynists.
Right.
But what they hate is that and they are right about this, that when there is a movement taking place and something is happening that sort of like sparks that movement, the organization, in this case Black Lives Matter, that becomes attached to the movement, they become infallible. You cannot criticize them at all. You cannot bring up the fact that they are a stated Marxist organization. And that's why I could never support them, because I'm not a Marxist. That's why I don't support libertarian protest movements, because I'm not libertarian. It just, and people are like, well, why do you have to focus on that? It's not about the organization. By the way, a few of them have been like charged with like larceny and fraud because they bought gigantic mansions and stuff.
Yeah,
like,
I saw that.
And so, but the point is that if you circle back to 2020, why are we, maybe I'll just ask you this question. Why do you think we are in a place now where the side that you're on must never, ever be criticized. They have to be infallible, while the side that you're against always has to be evil. And that's interchangeable with the left and right. I'm not equalizing them. I'm not saying that they're exactly the same or anything, but they have flaws in their own way. And this all or nothing game that we have where it's like, well, the right obviously worse. That doesn't mean that you get to absolve all the shit on the left, right?
No. Well, and here's the thing, like a great number of my friends, like ordinarily I'm at Scotch and Cigar night right now, sitting on my buddy's porch. Ordinarily, this is a Wednesday night. We have a Scotch and Cigar club, and I am the youngest guy by about 10, 12 years. So the guys are in their 60s and 70s. Mm-hmm. These are old white men, and most of them are staunchly, admittedly progressive conservative. Progressive is the key word, because they've always felt, let's give people a hand up. Right? Matter of fact, one of the most conservative guys in the crew a few weeks ago says, we got to do something about this homeless problem. Maybe we build barracks with everybody gets a private room or something. He says, we can't let people die in the streets. These are progressive conservatives. These are not Skippy the Wonder Pigeon conservatives, where they're like, I'm going to make you the freest. We're going to make Canada. With the Canada the freest country in the world. I'm like, we're tied. We're number 2 after Sweden, Finland, and Norway. Finland falls below us. It's Norway, Sweden, Denmark are the number. They're all at 100% on the freedom index, and we're at 98. So how much freer can we be? If we're going to be free like the Scandinavian countries, I'm all in, man, because they've got a strong social safety net. They have a healthcare system that actually is functioning and not being privatized by whatever party is in power in the region you live in, Ontario. I could go on about Doug Ford and how much of a piece of shit that fucking prick is.
I agree with you there. He had good hash back in the day. That's
I'm told.
The most endearing quality about our premier is that he once sold great hash.
Well, and go figure, the first year that cannabis is legalized and he's the premier, and the province of Ontario lost $40 million selling weed. And who's running the show? A former hash dealer.
Yeah, okay. There's a lot about that. So weed legalization is interesting, actually, because in 2011, I inked a contract with the federal Liberal government. Alfred Apps was the outgoing president. My job was to lobby delegates by teaming up with marijuana advocacy groups and lobby delegates who were 30% yes and 70% no on legalization, and have that number flip by the time the convention came in January 2012. And we did it. Mm-hmm. So I was happy about it. Justin Trudeau was one of 3 liberals there who I interviewed about marijuana, who was like leaning towards no at the time. He wasn't leader yet. So he flopped in the right direction eventually. But I think the process of legalization, what I didn't like about it was provinces were encouraged to get government to sell it. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was the massive mistake that they made. And the Conservatives, whether they like to admit or not, but somebody, a friend of mine who's has since passed away. He died tragically in a motorcycle accident in Thailand, but he was Patrick Brown's lawyer, and he would leak caucus documents to me when Patrick Brown was the leader of the opposition, and he would show me caucus minutes of the Conservatives who were like, well, what are we going to do about the seniors who are religious? They're not going to want the government, us, to sell marijuana. So they were going to make it private. And then they found out after they did some surveying that they would rather the government control it than allow the free market to have it, because that would be morally repugnant.
Well, if it's done by the government, it's going to be
inefficient, incompetent, moldy.
Well, moldy is the thing that is different, because they're not profit motivated. They're product motivated. And the difference being, and I don't partake. I can't. I'm allergic to it. It'll kill me. It'll make me very sick. I'll die. I don't want to do that. I still have a lot of living to do, despite the fact that, throughout my lifetime, several times with bouts of depression where I've thought about, well, could I? Well, no, it'll hurt other people, so I won't. it's part of the depression. It's what happens, and I have the inner conversation with myself, which is why I'm still here, and that's why I do the whole ASMR thing. It's like to talk about anxiety and depression. But when it comes to the government running something like that, it'll be inefficient, but it's not profit motivated because there's no shareholders for it. So in the end, they'll get their tax grab. The taxpayers that is the shareholder, right? But it will be strictly regulated and enforced. And although all that being said, I thought the Wynne government was going about it the wrong way. And again, I'm not a person who enjoys the product, but I thought we're gonna have 12 stores in Ontario. 12 stores for 14 million people. You are smoking something. Money. Because you got to be high if you think that could even. They're going to be lineups for 3 weeks long. That is ridiculous.
I live within 10 miles of 15 dispensaries.
What's a mile?
I'm sorry, 26 kilometers or something. I don't know. But
I'm being an ass
20,
because
20 kilometers. No, that's fine. 20 kilometers or something like that of like 15 or 16 dispensaries. They're all on reserves. Mm-hmm. None of them are government run.
No,
I get my shrooms there. Mm-hmm. And it is a perfect sort of case study of what it would have been like if the government would have just grandfathered in the dispensaries that already existed, gave them a pass on fucking like all the bullshit, and just said, look, you broke the law yesterday, but it's Tuesday now. We passed this law. You're in, Well, and I thought that would have been a better plan too, to be honest with you. And again, I still wanted to see some government involvement for quality control of product, right? I mean, there's a reason we have, like, if I go to the store and I buy some sliced deli meat and I make a sandwich and I don't die from listeria tomorrow, it's because we've had government controls in meat packing plants that make sure that the product that gets released is not poison. It's why I can go to the liquor store and buy a beer or, a bottle of wine and not worry about it being poison. It's because we have government involvement to a degree. Now, would I like to see beer for sale in the corner store? Hell yes, I would. But you know what? I've always thought if we're going to do that, let's do it in a different way than other provinces have. Quebec, it's 2 minutes from where I live. Like literally, I can get in my car. I can be across the bridge in 8 minutes, and I can buy beer at any corner store 7 days a week till 11 p.m. Cool. There's a corner store 100 meters from my front door. I'd love to be able to buy beer there, but here's what we should do if we're going to sell beer in Ontario. Local craft beer in corner stores. Locally produced Ontario beer in corner stores. Let the big guys fight it out at the beer store and the liquor store, and craft beer in corner stores. They already kind of do that with the whole wine rack thing.
Yeah, well, it's right. Yeah. And it works well. Those are Ontario wines.
I think it's now, like 20% is from other places, and the rest of it is from Ontario.
And it works well. And they're open late, like till 11 p.m., I think 7 nights a week, if memory serves. There's one here on Elgin Street, a couple of blocks from where I live, the Wine Rack, and it's Canada Day. They're open till 11 p.m.
Yeah, why wouldn't they? I always was confused about it. Do you remember walking into stores like in the 90s or something, and the Hasty Market near my house and where I grew up in Whitby. It was a fairly big store, but then I'd walk in and it was a holiday and they'd barricade half of it off, and I'd be like, "What are you doing?" Oh, the government says that if you're over a certain square footage, you can't be open. So,
Well, let's look at what old Dougie did during the pandemic. We're going to remake restrictions here and this and that. We're going to protect everybody. Uncle Doug, you really didn't do that because you allowed only the big box stores to remain open.
Yeah.
Whereas the mom and pop shops that really could have used your help and could have actually controlled who came in and out of their stores, you let them die. You let them wither and die. And I see it in this city, a city of Ottawa, where the employment rate is sky high. I think it's one of the most educated cities in the world for post-secondary education, the population here. And all these little mom and pop shops, for want of a better term, are gone because they got no support from our provincial government. Because who is in his pocket, or vice versa? Big business. And I'm not going to name the big name stores, the big box stores, because I don't want to get sued and you don't want to get sued and we don't want that heat.
I don't fucking care if I get sued. I have nothing.
Hey, join the club, brother.
Yeah, they can't take my kids. Fuck you, Loblaws.
Well, Loblaws, Shoppers, Walmart, all of those guys were open the whole time. And they, they had restrictions, but they didn't do fuck all.
Was it now? Because I seem to remember that, and I could be totally wrong. It wasn't municipalities that decided which stores stayed open.
No, it was the province. It was provincial.
That was criminal. Like,
Agreed.
not only was it criminal, it was scientifically stupid.
Stupid.
We're in the middle of COVID, so let's make sure that everybody goes to Walmart for their groceries instead of a few people going here and a few people going there.
Exactly.
Like how much COVID was spread just at Loblaws, for Christ's sake?
Well, I would guess a shit ton, maybe even a fuck ton, which is a lot more than a shit ton, right?
Yeah, and just so we don't want to get sued, so Loblaws, we're not saying that you killed anybody.
No.
We're saying that if you did kill someone, the number is between 0 and like 1,000. That's all we're saying.
That's it.
Maybe.
That's it.
Yeah.
Well, and then you had the whole thing about how Dougie kept saying he was going to come up with the best sick paid leave in Ontario, in North America, which we still don't have. I get 3 paid sick days a year. That's it. So if I get COVID, the office that I'm working in, because I work for a private company and they've contracted me to a Crown Corp, if I get COVID, I cannot go into the office. And 70% of my job needs to be done in person on site, period. Yeah, no ifs, ands, or buts. So, and the rule of that company is you get COVID, you need to stay home for 10 days. Like they're like, I know the rules are different, but this is, we're protecting our people. And I'm like, no, I get it. I totally get it. So for me, I still wear my KN95 mask and people give me sideways looks every now and then. And I'm like, I don't give a shit. I don't care. I have not been sick in 3 years. I've never had COVID. I've got 4 shots. I'm going for my bivalent the minute I can get it because I'm allergic to everything. And as my friends will often say, if somebody sneezes around Paul, he gets sick. You know what? That was the truth for a long time. It's like one day I woke up and my elbow was all swollen. I'm like, oh, what is that, bursitis? And I talked to a doctor friend. She goes, you got to go to ER tomorrow. I'm like, if you don't go, I'm coming to get. It turns out I had cellulitis. And I don't know if you know what cellulitis is, but it's...
it sounds like thighs that are big, but I don't know
that's usually where it starts, where they were shocked that it was in my elbow. And, I'm
fucking lazy ass elbow.
Well, and I was working out 7 days a week. I was in the best shape of my life.
Yeah.
But my elbow swelled up. It went red. And they're like, we have to treat this. I went to the ER and they took one look at me and immediately, I was in a bed in 15 minutes.
Wow. 15
minutes and they had me on an IV. A couple of days later, I had an IV with a pump and then I had a PICC line put in. I don't know if you know what a PICC line is, but it's when they make an insertion in your bicep, a little insertion in your bicep, find a big vein and shove a little tube all the way about this far from the entrance to your heart to pump it full of antibiotics. I was on a pump for 2 months. So I had a PICC line for 2 months, wearing that 24 hours a day. Suffice to say, it was not pleasant, but if I didn't do that, it would have killed me. Cellulitis is deadly.
Wow.
Deadly.
I'm learning so much. No idea. I thought cellulitis was cottage cheese fat on your thighs. That's what I thought.
No, that's cellulite. Cellulite.
It's the exact same word.
Cellulitis, almost. It's very similar. And cellulitis normally occurs in your legs. So when they saw it in my elbow, the guy looked at me and he goes, oh, this is not good. This is not good. I go, yeah, it really hurts and it burns. So he literally draws a purple mark around it and says, I'm going to be back in 10 minutes. Comes back 10 minutes. It's growing past the purple mark. Had me on antibiotics, had me on an IV, had me get x-rays, had me get an MRI. Like, they were not screwing around. This is all pre-COVID. I don't know that with COVID being what it is and the cuts that good old Uncle Doug has made to our healthcare system in Ontario and how he refuses to give a raise to healthcare workers, I don't know that I would get the same treatment. And not because the people in the hospital aren't compassionate, but because they don't have the resources or the time or the personnel. And they're burned. They're burned out. They're so burned out.
I have a friend that currently works inside the Ontario Health Minister's office. He's a subcontractor. I don't even understand what his job is, to be perfectly honest with you, but he works there. And he told me something that I found really interesting. He said that the biggest cost of healthcare is not even delivery, right? It's admin, right? In Ontario, I'm talking about. And of that admin, I don't know what the percentage is, but it's the biggest piece of the pie. He says that the cost inside those administrative costs, you know what the biggest cost is? Maintaining privacy.
Oh yeah. I can yeah. I can see that.
I find our entire, like, the fear of someone knowing I have a bum knee. Why do I give a fuck about that? And I'm not sure if people know this.
I'm the same way. I'm the same way with you when it comes to that. I don't.
Yeah.
Who gives a shit?
I don't understand. I don't know if people know this or not, but the last time I went to the doctor, I had my results in my email before my family doctor had them. I had to send it to him.
Yeah.
Anytime you ever go to any doctor or specialist, demand it, because they have to give it to you. But you know what? They don't want to. You want to know why? Because it costs them admin costs.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, it does.
But the long term would be more people taking ownership of things like diagnosis. When I first moved here to Killaloe, which is, I'm about 2 hours outside of Ottawa.
Yeah, right? I know where it is.
Yeah. We had to drive all the way back to the city to go see our family doctor to get results for my daughter's blood work.
How absurd is that?
4 fucking hours we had to drive. And when we got there, and when we got there, everything was fine. I was so fucking pissed off. I was like, look, dude, like, I don't know.
4 hours there, 4 hours back.
Yeah. Can you do me a favor? The next time you have no fucking news, just fucking tell me over the phone. I'll give you permission. Yeah, and he was the one that told me. He was the one that told me. You can. He's like, because it wasn't him. It was obviously his admin person. But she was like, she never told me it was an option. But he was like, you can get it emailed. You guys are 4 hours away. Yeah, I'll email everything to you. And I'm just like, when did this happen? He's like, 3 years ago. So this is back in 2016. So at least from 2012 or whatever, 2013, we have had the ability to never have to visit another fucking doctor's office again to get our results. Well, and no one knows that. It's weird.
Well, and there's so many things I've noticed in the last couple of years that have made life simpler. Like, so I have a million skin ailments. Occasionally I get rosacea, which is why my cheeks are always rosy red. It's not blush. It's not rouge. It's rosacea.
Blossoms. Yep.
Nope. Although I'm getting some of that here. But I get eczema, and this is stuff I've dealt with my whole life. So I remember the last time I got a script for eczema was in 2018. And I went to see the doctor, and he goes, "Oh yeah, why don't I just give you like a kilo of the stuff?" Like literally a kilo, and I get it in 50-gram tubes. So I went to the pharmacy, and and she goes, "You want all of?" I go, "No, just give me 50-gram tubes. I don't need a kilo right away."
What's
That's
that,
absurd.
Like 200 trips to the.
Well, here's the best part. She goes, "This is going to last you a long time." I go, "Yeah, I know, that's the point. I don't need the product every day, but if you give me a kilo of it now, I can't use it."
You're going to start selling it on the street. People are going to be like, "Yo, man, can you give me some of that eczema medicine, man?"
It's an ointment. It's greasy and it works. It's a really strong steroid and it works like a charm. But if I don't know if you've ever had the misfortune of ever having to deal with an eczema flare-up, it can literally, and I get it head to toe. So it's like, oh yeah.
Is it like shingles? No. Is it that bad?
Well, similar. It's similar to that. Yeah. But shingles is only on one side, and some people get it head to toe on one side. Some people get it in a little patch. Eczema can go over your entire torso, under your arm, sometimes in the crack of your butt.
Oh.
Yeah. Never on the boys though. Jimmy and the twins never gets that. Can I just
do my impersonation of you just now? Sometimes in the crack of your butt. Yeah. Like, okay. This is brought to you by Calamine. Yeah.
But it's absolutely true that it can be really, really uncomfortable and unpleasant, and it makes life difficult. And it's every now and then I'll be sitting in a pub somewhere having a conversation with the bartender, and I'm kind of a chatty fella. And somebody will reveal to me, well, I'm like, oh, I'm like, oh, I have that too. I'm like, oh, what do you use? And we get into the conversation and go, So one of the medications for rosacea after tetracycline was the pill you take twice a day with food, is ivermectin. Shit you not. I shit you not. I have a tube of ivermectin. I'm not kidding. It's 30 grams. It's a small little tube. And here's the thing. It's $300 for 30 grams. $300. It wasn't that much pre-pandemic.
Wow.
Back then it was like, I don't know, it was a lot less. And my drug company, like my benefits package through my employer covered it. So it was like $5 a prescription. So if I went in and I got the ivermectin and I got the mometasone and the tetracycline, it was $15 is all it cost me. Now the benefits package that I have through the private sector company will not cover name brand. They'll only cover generic. And I'm like, well, here's the problem with that. There's no generic version of this product. It does not exist.
What is it called? It's not called ivermectin though, right? It's
literally ivermectin.
Oh, okay.
That's what it is.
Because
I'll get you the tube and show it to you if you want to see it.
But there is a generic ivermectin.
Not in the cream.
Oh,
and not for human consumption. It's
okay,
not.
gotcha.
There's different. There's a generic ivermectin for animals, horses, right? Horse based. That's not meant for human consumption, or it's not meant as a topical solution for human beings at all. No, it's meant for horses.
Yeah, I think there is a human version of the ivermectin, but it's got so little in it, right?
It's 1% maximum. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. It's very, very minute. And it you put it on and one of the side effects, it may increase the burning effect of rosacea. What? No, I want to decrease that shit.
Yeah.
Tetracycline works wonders, but I mean, you got to take it for like a month and it's not pleasant.
No. How did you fare during the pandemic as far as your mental health was concerned?
Surprisingly great.
Yeah. Okay.
Surprisingly great.
Let's put the convoy aside.
Aside from that, surprisingly great, only because on February 28th of 2020, I was at February 28th or 26th, I can't remember the exact date, but it was right around then, because I remember I got the script on February 28th, so maybe it was the 26th. Yes, the 26th of February, 2020, I was at a charity fundraising event at the Lone Star Cafe on Saint Laurent Boulevard. And there was a bunch of live bands, and I met a bunch of friends. And I've been battling depression for 42 years now. But at that point, I was in really, really, I'd hit the lowest point ever, and I didn't know how I was going to carry on. I know I didn't want to harm myself because of what that would do to my friends and family, and I was well aware of how much I have people in my life that love me. So I thought, how am I gonna cope? How am I gonna cope? And I was at that thing that night, and a dear friend of mine who is a physician, she said, Zoloft. She said, Zoloft, it'll make a difference in your life. She says, and if the side effects are too much, you can just quit, and everything goes right back to normal. So I said, okay, done. The next day, went online and booked an appointment with my doctor for Monday. Went in to see the doctor Monday, and I said, I can't cope anymore. I need something. He goes, let's try. We'll start with this. So sure enough, I started that February 28th, and then, the end of March, the whole world shut down. Well, by that point, I was almost near the end of the ramp-up point, and my mother's like, are you okay? Are you okay? My parents, my family, I'm very public about the fact that I have depression and anxiety, because I think if I talk about it, it can help somebody else. So my mother called me. She's like, are you okay? I go, Mom, I'm fine. I said, my only concern is money right now, because I might be out of a job. I don't know. Right?
Yeah.
That all worked out in the end, obviously, but the best part was the medication really made me just, oh, okay, no problem. Like,
that's great.
I had no ill thoughts, no self-harm thoughts, nothing like that. It was like, okay, well, this, it's a bummer that I'm sitting here on the couch watching doom and gloom all over the world, but why don't I start podcasting? And that's how it all began.
That's great, dude. You know what? I talk about this all the time, so people are probably going to get sick of me saying this, but I feel like the pandemic exposed who we were at that
agreed.
time to ourselves.
Agreed. Yes.
And your job during the pandemic, especially when we were isolating at home and everything like that, I feel really strongly about this, that your job was to figure out who you were at that moment and either fix it or roll with it depending on how you were. And I said this before, it's pretty dark humor, but if I had a button that could save the 8 million people that have died during the pandemic, but my career trajectory would go away, I don't know if I'd push the button. Like,
okay, that's dark humor, but it's funny because I have a weird sense of humor.
I'm pretty happy with like, excuse me. I've never been happier in the sense that I knew what I wanted to do.
Right.
You know, I was like, I have a shot right now and everyone had the same shot to work on the thing that I really wanted to do, which was write and to create a podcast. Mm-hmm. And those are the things, 2 book deals later, and 110 episodes later, here I am. And it's not like it's financially rewarding.
Oh, no. That's not why we do it, though. That's not why we do it.
I care so much about content. Matt Kundle, he took me under his wing for a day.
He's
there
a genius,
and was like,
by the way.
Yeah, he's so good. And he was teaching me the ins and outs of the software that posts it to all of your portals and stuff. What's it called? The CM one, Megaphone, right?
Oh yes,
he's teaching me Megaphone, and he kept on telling me to put 5 ads in my podcast.
Mm-hmm. That's the minimum, 5.
I still to this day put 3.
I started doing 5.
Yeah, and it wasn't because I disagree with him, because I know he's probably right.
Mm-hmm.
I just care so much about the content that I thought if I started, because I have an OCD brain. Okay, if I'm an addict. If there was a line of coke in front of me right now, I'd probably do it. I wouldn't seek out the coke. I wouldn't buy the coke. But if someone just went, here, take that bump, I'd be like, yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, I'm in. Yeah. No, I get it. I understand.
And it wouldn't lead to a downward spiral or anything like that. It's just, whatever. And the idea that, that the way the pandemic made me obsess over, for the first time in my life, positive things and healthy things, I had never experienced that before. And that's why I like you, who managed, to get sick before the pandemic, and then you've been sort of fine ever since. I curbed drinking 3 months or so before the pandemic started, without knowing that there was going to be a pandemic. And then I was just like, oh, this is great. It just felt like I had, okay, don't blow it this time, dummy. That was pretty much what was in my head the whole time.
I remember you wrote an article about that, and I read it. It was very well written, by the way. I really enjoyed it because I thought there's certain elements of that I can certainly identify with. Now, when I went on the medication, one of the things my doctor said was, as you're ramping up, it's going to take 6 to 8 weeks, no alcohol. I went, okay. He goes, really? And I go, yeah, I'm not a slave to it. I like beer. I like wine. I like whiskey. But if they're like, well, you can't ever have it again because if you do, it'll kill you. I'm like, okay. I'm not a slave to it. I never have been. I have a OCD and I have ADHD, but I don't have an addictive personality. If somebody says you shouldn't do that anymore and it's harmful, okay. I used to drink double, and I used to drink 4 of them a day. Now I have 2 cups of coffee in the morning, black. You know why? Because it's an alkaline. Black organic coffee is an alkaline, whereas a double is acidic and it creates a toxic environment within your system. So I'm like, okay, no problem. I literally went overnight from double to black coffee the next day.
Interesting.
Well, it was just a decision. It was like, it's real easy. It's like, if I don't do this, harm will come upon me, and I don't want that. I'd like to live a healthy lifestyle as much as one can when you're allergic to a million things and you have an incredibly restrictive diet. So,
Yeah, it's it's so interesting and ironic that being able to discover all these positive things during what was one of the worst crises of our existence, really.
Oh yeah, period. Yeah.
I guess since the turn of the millennium, it would be 9/11, the financial crisis, and COVID, right? Those are the 3
pretty much
so far.
Yeah, the 3 biggest ones. Yeah.
I wonder where we're heading.
I don't know, but I'm hoping for the roaring 20s any minute now, man. I want to see a booming economy and money falling out of my pockets.
Without the racism.
It was, no shit. Yeah. And here's the thing. I joke when I say money falling out of my pockets. I just want to join the middle class. I don't want to be rich. I don't need to be rich. I just want to have enough money so that, when I go to the pub on Fridays with my buds, I don't have to double think about, oh, wait a minute, I need to buy groceries in the next 2 days and the budget. I don't want to have to worry about that. And that's it.
I know exactly what you mean. The stability and security of just being able to pay your bills and go to a movie once in a while, or whatever.
And I've really scaled my life back in the last couple of years. If I can afford to, I will take a trip and go to another part of the world. But when I do it, I'm finding the cheapest flight. I'm using points. I'm traveling to a part of the world where I'm staying with a friend.
Yeah.
Because I can't afford to spend 2 weeks in a hotel in Geneva. If my friend didn't have a condo there, I couldn't afford Geneva. But what I'll do is I'll fly to Paris and take the train to Geneva, because the flight to Paris might be $400 to $500, maybe some points, and then I take a train for $100. Yeah, they're right now they're seven and change, but you can get them from Montreal to Paris for $500 if you keep looking.
Wow, that's kind of crazy.
Yeah, and then you take the train or an EasyJet, and the train's like $100, and you can take the train literally from Charles de Gaulle. You just walk the Air Canada terminal. You walk maybe 500 meters. You go down. You get on the train. It takes you right to one more city. You change trains, and then it takes you right to Geneva. I've done it a few times.
I would love to go to Paris. I went to London on business once, and I was okay. Maybe I should stop lying. I got fired from the Huffington Post, but pretended I was still working for the Huffington Post when I was approached by a tobacco company to fly me to Southampton and look at their vaping facility. And the whole time I'm there, I'm just like, I'm going to get caught any second now. They're going to call an editor at Huffington Post. I'd always want to go to Paris, because London left a bad taste in my mouth a little bit, because I was staying in Westminster, and then for the following week I stayed in East London. East London, dope. Westminster, I got hustled in the richest fucking city in Europe. I got totally hustled.
I can believe it.
At a barber shop of all places. I wanted to get like a shave. Like I had a little bit of a beard. I just wanted to look clean. And I heard that they shaved heads and stuff. So I was like, oh, fuck, let's do it. And then all of a sudden, this guy in a really thick British accent is like, hey, do I want it? And I was like, what? And then all of a sudden, 3 more guys came out, gave me quick rub downs, fluttered their towel, and boom, an extra 100 pounds. I'm like, what are you talking about?
At a time when 100 pounds was a hell of a lot more than it is today.
That was 2018. Yeah.
Oh God. Yeah. So it was like $300 at the time, close to 280.
So I never want to go back to Westminster. But dude, is it called Brick Lane in London?
Not been there.
It's Indian. It's just like the one strip of just all the most glorious Indian food places I went there and I spent like 200 pounds on like 4 different Indian dishes in 4 different restaurants, and just took it all home and got fatter.
Well, I have friends who live in London, and they're like, they're my buddy's cousin. And there's a 6 degrees of separation without getting too detailed here. His sister, so my buddy in London, his sister used to play bass for Prince.
What?
Shit you not. Yeah, she played bass for Prince for years. She was part of the new power generation. She's one of the most respected bass players in the world. I'm not lying. Dead serious.
I believe you have a really cool knowledge of music. One of the great we've never met in person, but if I think of you, immediately the first thing that comes to mind is that you knew who Eternia was.
I love her.
So happy.
Dude, she's such a rock star. The first time I heard her, I was like, holy shit. Like she spits, I don't think there's anybody in the game that does what she does. I sincerely mean that. She's a rock star. And she's, some of her stuff, I would go, you know what? That's borderline heavy metal. I know it's rap. I know it's hip hop, but it hits like metal.
Yeah, it does. She is, and she had the respect of her peers.
Oh yeah,
who were all male, right? And who were like, at the time, especially like in the 90s when she was like starting out and doing her thing, there was a certain vibe to her that guys were like stopping themselves. They would have to stop themselves from going, she's good for a female because
they
turns
threw that
she
out.
she was just
good.
Just good. Yeah, exactly. Now I just want to play something really quickly just because you mentioned her. Yeah.
Am I okay? No, I'm not okay. Woke up with this track in my head, I got the itch again. I missed the bus cause I was bumping this, I won't pretend. Been through a couple of my 9 lives since we last met. His Hope and Cole and Kendrick understand I got a vent. I got a pen, I got a head full of convoluted cloudy days. Let it rain, let it sting the conscience of those who went on inflicting pain, then pretended they were not to blame. See, I can name names, but that be acting cowardly, that's not my lane. Me, I am not the victim, see, I am just in misery. Laying down and catching fleas is my responsibility. Life was on a spin cycle downward, God lifted me though. So I feel.
You know what's funny? When I had her on the show, we were watching this video before the show, and I think actually we did it on air too.
Mm-hmm.
It's possible because she filmed this in my neighborhood when I lived there.
Oh yeah,
that I'm in the background stumbling home from a rave after party. It's coming up. You'll see it in the background when she turns the corner.
Okay.
Guilty when I don't have grateful energy. Oh Lord, I'm supposed to feel your love and feel fulfilled in theory, but this hamster wheel has got me trapped and I'm sincerely weary of it all.
Insert dramatic pause.
Words don't move me, they used to. Now all I hear is a God, don't let them get to me, please. I feel the war in my spirit.
Okay, do you see that guy on the
Is that you?
The left side there? He's
Yeah.
about to dance a little bit.
Yeah.
We think there's like a 40% chance that's me. Because
this is in Whitby?
No, this is in Kensington Market in Toronto.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So I was like, what time did you film this? Because I was like, there's no one there. And if it looks like a Sunday, like at 5 a.m., she's like, that's exactly when it was. And I'm like, and then so when you see this person and like we like blew it up, like that looks like it could be me because the guy's got no hair, right?
I feel the devil whispering in your retreat, sweet. Nothing's in my ear, I'm open. Then I go out and pick the option that is so.
She's so dope. I have a really hard time remembering that it's probably disrespectful to call Eternia hot, but as a rapper, I have like, if I were to, you remember Weird Science? I wouldn't invent
Kelly LeBrock.
I'd probably invent Eternia because I would love to just be with someone that could rhyme their fucking asses off. You know?
She has a gift. It's a gift. It's a skill. It is a skill, but there's a gift to it too. Because a skill is something you can train and become better at. But you also have to have that little pinch of gift to be that good, because she is so good. It's astonishing to me that she's not like literally the biggest female rapper on earth, or to hell with that, the biggest rapper on earth.
Well, she had the unfortunate circumstance of being born and raised in Canada.
Yeah, well, she's from Ottawa originally, right?
Yeah, and speaking of Ottawa, like when your biggest hip hop A&R guy, Ivan Barry, when the only hip hop act that he signed one year was Tom Green, you got a problem.
Check the do you know it so far? Do you like it so far?
Like it so far, yeah.
Sorry.
I've
met Tom a few times.
Mother Goose. It's like, I don't know about that.
But I'll give Tom respect in the sense that he does love and appreciate hip hop and rap. He does.
Yeah, he was a trailblazer.
Oh yeah.
He actually like he's not very good now, and he did this rhyme thing on Twitter, and it made me think to myself two things. One is that he's out of practice, but the second thing is that I don't care because I respect Tom Green so much because of all the things that he did before anybody else did them.
Before anyone. Like Jackass has said, you're the guy who inspired us.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the things like when he had himself duct taped to a telephone pole outside of Much Music in downtown Toronto to profess his love for Monica Diol.
Oh my God.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do.
That was when he had his Cable 22 show. And there was the one episode, the funniest one to me ever. That people will go on about it was this one. It was this. To me, the funniest one ever was they show him sitting on a park bench beside the Rideau Canal in full hockey gear, skates, the whole bit, in July. And he has a puck in his hand and he throws it into the canal and then jumps over. And there's an old couple sitting beside him and they were just... And I was just about pissing myself because it was so funny.
Oh, that's hilarious. When he did you see when he spray painted the pornographic picture on his mom's hood of this car?
Yeah, that was his dad's car.
Oh, but he also invented podcasting. I don't think people understand that.
He did. He completely invented it before anybody else.
Before anyone. We just got word that there are people waiting to use this software. Paul, I could talk to you for another 2 hours. Really, like
I'd love to do that. Yeah, let's do this again, man.
Yeah, let's definitely do this again. I think I'm trying to do this thing now where I have regulars. You know, like start people out monthly and like whatever, but maybe in a couple weeks or whatever. But I definitely want to have you back on. I feel like we could talk about any subject. And it would be
hell yeah. Oh yeah, hell yeah.
That's Paul Atkinson from the True Eager Beaver Podcast and Beaver Bites. Is that a separate show altogether?
Well, it's part of the True Eager Beaver. I have the whole music thing on I have the jazz show and the pop music show. I have a pop music show on Mixcloud and I have the jazz show, which is available on Spotify. It's called Songs and Stories Supplemental Jazz Edition on Spotify and the Songs and Stories Volumetric series on Mixcloud. So
you also have one of the greatest voices. Actually, I can't even do an impersonation of it, guys.
Well, thank you very much.
No problem. All right, buddy. Paul Atkinson, everybody. Thanks, man, for joining us. I appreciate it.
Hey, it was a blast. Thanks, man. Really had a good time. Thanks.
Me too. Paul Atkinson. Okay. I have some news. First of all, thank you to Paul. I mean it. I could talk to that dude for hours. I hope you guys enjoyed our conversation because I kind of forgot that the audience was there because I was so into just a really relaxed yet informative conversation. He's a fascinating guy. Now the news. Okay, so tomorrow I have a Blackballed doubleheader. At 7:00 I got Michael Geist. We're going to talk about Bill C-11, and then at 10:30 I have John Spencer, who's returning back to the show to give us an update on the war between Russia and Ukraine. The reason why John Spencer is coming on the show is because he's the world's most foremost expert in urban warfare. And the methods that he created are actually being used by the Ukrainian military force responsible for training their civilian force. So that's how much respect he has. That's how much pull he has. Like Zelensky knows who he is, that kind of thing. So he's on at 10:30. But on Friday, this I just booked today. I'm pretty excited about this. I guess Netflix is premiering the Dahmer documentary in the States on Friday. If you're in Canada, you've probably already seen it. But I think I have my facts right that it will be premiering in the States on October 7th. On October 7th, I will have Ann Schwartz on the show. Ann Schwartz is the reporter who first broke the Jeffrey Dahmer story. She is also a writer who wrote Monster, the true story of Jeffrey Dahmer murders. I am super excited to have her on. It's very timely. Everything about it I like. And that will be 7:00 on Friday. So once again, my thanks to Paul Atkinson. Right now, I am trying to find my outro music so that we can go. I always do this. I always end up like looking for stuff while I'm trying to get the fuck out of Dodge. And I'm looking in the wrong folder. And so you're now listening to the bullshit antics of a guy who can't find his outro. And I found it. So yeah. So Michael Geist tomorrow at 7. John Spencer tomorrow at 10:30. Ann Schwartz Friday at 7:00. Who once again is the reporter that broke the Jeffrey Dahmer story. So it's a pretty big lineup coming up. Thanks again to Paul Atkinson, and we will see you next time on Blackballed. Thanks, everybody.
Blackballed. 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 Blackballed.